In this video, we will be going over the functionality of the Summoner of Old, as their final day is drawn near. We will be looking at how each action introduced affected their gameplay, taking note of certain oddities in their toolkit, including ghosting. We will not be covering role actions as these are universal to the mage role, but these can be reviewed in the video in the top right corner. Before we begin, I will refer to the level 1 to 50 Shadowbringers guide I have made separately for information regarding the first 50 levels. I will assume you know these things as well as are familiar with certain common abbreviations such as GCD, OGCD, weaving, AoE, and dot. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Level 52 introduced Pain Flare as an AoE alternative to Fester, intended for 3 or more targets. Level 54 upgraded Ruin 1 permanently to Ruin 3, which just increased its potency slightly. This did not change the rotation at all. Level 56 introduced the ability Try Disaster. This ability, on a 50-second cooldown, would instantly apply both dots, bio and miasma, and also did a decent amount of damage. This ability was typically used to reapply dots efficiently, which meant sometimes you would be keeping it ready for even up to 30 seconds at a time to reapply bio and miasma as late as possible. The effective change this had was that about half of your applications of dots could be done with this ability instead, and it also meant your opening spellcast could be Ruin Eggy Assault Try Disaster instead of Miasma Bio. Level 58 introduced the ability Dreadworm Trance. This ability made all your spells have a 2.5 second shorter cast time, making most of the Summoner toolkit instant cast. It also instantly reset the cooldown of Try Disaster. Dreadworm Trance was typically used on cooldown for this reason. This made Try Disaster capable of taking care of 3 out of 4 dot reapplications in a 2-minute window. Level 60 introduced the ability Death Flare. Only usable while in Dreadworm Trance, it would immediately end the trance, but it did a large amount of damage in an AoE. The rotational significance was that you would use this for every Dreadworm Trance, and sometimes, if you did not need the instant casting benefit of Dreadworm Trance, you could even use it early. Level 62 introduced Ruin 4 and its supporting trait, Enhanced Ruin 2. This caused casting Eggy Assault 1 to grant a charge of Further Ruin when your Eggy would finish its assault. Further Ruin then upgraded Ruin 2 to Ruin 4, the most powerful version of Ruin. Up to 4 uses of this buff could be kept at a time, and since it had no duration, you could save them for a while. Even if they did the most damage, the fact they were instant made them convenient for dealing with movement without losing any DPS, since you wanted to use them at some point anyway. Level 64 introduced the ability Aether Pact. This caused your Eggy to cast Devotion, which boosted everyone around its damage output for a while. At this level, it was very easy to simply use it when needed, but later on, your Eggy could be unavailable for a significant amount of time, so planning when to use this ability would become important. Level 66 upgraded Bio 2 and Miasma to Bio 3 and Miasma 3. This did not change the rotation at all, although it did increase DPS significantly. Level 68 reduced the cooldown of Enkindle. This did not change the rotation much, as Enkindle should already be used as close to on cooldown as possible. Level 70 added the after effect of finishing Dreadworm Trance as granting 1 stack of Dreadworm Ether. With 2 stacks, meaning after 2 trances, the ability Summon Demi Bahamut became available. Using this ability summoned Bahamut to fight alongside you for a while, wherein he would cast an attack every time you attacked with a spell. Due to a specific duration of 20 seconds specifically, you could typically fit 8 spells in the duration. While Bahamut was around, you could also use Enkindle Bahamut to make him use Archmorn for a massive hit. If done properly, you could fit 2 Enkindles in this time frame. Outside of the obvious, using Bahamut when possible and trying your best to cast 8 spells by late weaving the Bahamut cast itself, a significant change was that at this point, you would want to go into the Bahamut state with as many further ruin stacks as possible, as instant casting in the latter half of the Bahamut duration was preferred. This preference is related to one of the common oddities about Summoner, ghosting. If you queued up an Eggy Assault on your Eggy, but then summoned a different Eggy, or the target died so there was no one to use the assault on, or if Bahamut was summoned, which itself would temporarily remove your Eggy, then your Eggy's attack would ghost, as it was called. What this meant was that you would lose the charge of Eggy Assault, but not only would your Eggy never do the attack, but you would also lose out on the potential further ruin stack. In the case of Bahamut, if your final spell cast before he disappeared happened within about a second to half a second of his timer running out, he would start the attack, perhaps even finish the animation, but not do any of the damage of the attack. He would ghost the attack. To avoid this issue, you would commonly make sure that all Egi assaults were finished before Deathflare finishing your Dreadworm trance, and in case of Bahamut, use instant cast spells like Ruin 4 over casted spells, as this would make it more likely the final cast from Bahamut would happen sooner, reducing the chance of ghosting. Level 72 instead made Bahamut become available after every Dreadworm trance, but every second trance would be replaced by Firebird trance. This did not change the way Bahamut was used at all, although in an opener sense, there could be more reason to Deathflare early so you could move on to Bahamut, if your party gave some damage buffs you would like to benefit from alongside Bahamut. Firebird trance replaced Ruin 3 with Fountain of Fire, and Outburst with Brand of Purgatory. Both of these spells were instant cast, and while Fountain of Fire was single target, it granted a buff that allowed the use of Brand of Purgatory, which not only did more damage, but also was AoE. Due to the duration of 20 seconds, it was possible to fit 8 spells in the window, namely 4 fountains and 4 brands, where you simply alternated. Every spell being instant made it also very easy to work around. Firebird trance would also, like Dreadworm trance, instantly reset the cooldown of Tri-Disaster. Level 74 expanded Egi Assault 2 to also grant a charge of further ruin. This did not change the rotation much, although it made it a lot easier to collect the 4 further ruins that was preferred for the Bahamut window. Level 76 improved the potency of Outburst. Unfortunately, it did not affect the rotation at all, as it still only beat Ruin 3 on 3 or more targets. Level 78 upgraded Bane to always replicate the dots with full duration, instead of it only being a chance. It should be underlined that the potency of the dots would be unchanged, as Bane still only produced 40% power dots when replicating them. Level 80 upgraded Firebird trance to have Phoenix fight alongside you during the trance, in contrast to summoning it afterwards with Bahamut. When entering Firebird trance, Phoenix is summoned with a grand entrance of applying a heal over time effect to everyone present. Then, Phoenix will attack alongside you on every spellcast, just like Bahamut. Enkindle Bahamut would also automatically change to Enkindle Phoenix, which caused Phoenix to attack with Revelation, a Phoenix-themed version of Akmon. Like Bahamut, Phoenix's Enkindle could be used twice per trance. Due to how the big hitters of the summoner rotation primarily involved Bahamut and Phoenix, both on 20-second durations, and relying especially on pairs of spellcasts for Phoenix's Brand of Purgatory, spell speed was a very uninteresting stat for summoners. In particular, while it would be possible to fit 9 spells with a GCD of about 2.4, it was unwanted, as either 8 or 10 spells would always be preferred. Getting 10 spells in a 20-second window instead required a GCD of at least 2.16, which was completely impossible to reach. As such, when played optimally, summoners would opt for the round 2.5 GCD if given the opportunity. To round off, let's talk about the summoner rotation. Keep in mind that the only things that change between single target and AoE are the following. You use Ifrit Egi on 1 or 2 targets, and Garuda Egi on 3 or more targets. Ruin 3 is replaced by Outburst on 3 or more targets, and if using it strictly for the damage, Outburst also beats Ruin 4 on 4 or more targets. The act of applying dots on multi-target should always be immediately followed by using Bane to spread it. Pain Flare replaces Fester on 3 or more targets. Similarly, Energy Siphon replaces Energy Drain on 3 or more targets. Now, let's look at an example opener. I will go over one example, as Summoner had multiple different ones for different timings. This one was known for its rushed Dreadworm trance. Start by summoning Ifrit Egi, move it into melee range of the boss. Note that Egis do not draw aggro, so this is perfectly safe. When the pull timer hits 2, you start casting Ruin 3. When the timer is at about 0.625 seconds from pull, press the Sick button to order your Egi to attack. Once your Ruin 3 finishes casting, you use Egi Assault 1 alongside Tri-Disaster and Dreadworm Trance. Then you use Egi Assault 2 alongside Energy Drain and Aether Pact. Then you use Egi Assault 1 again, and this is the opportunity to use your Tincture if you have one. Then you use Ruin 3, which would be instant due to Dreadworm Trance, and you use Enkindle, preferably late weaved, leading into another Egi Assault 2 and a late weaved Fester. Keep in mind these oddly late-weaved attacks are intended to line up with certain buff timings in a raid, so naturally, most of these timings are less important if you're not in a coordinated raid. After this, you use Rune 3 and Death Flare into summon Demi Bahamut. Here you use Rune 4 to fit Enkindle Bahamut and the second Fester. Then you add another Rune 4, as you're still benefiting from all the damage buffs that may have come out of the party, including Devotion. Then you cast Rune 3 twice, followed by Rune 4, Enkindle Bahamut, Rune 3, Rune 4, Try Disaster, Swift Cast, Rune 3, which both results in the final Bahamut spell being instant, and also enabling you to use Energy Drain Fester into Eggy Assault 1. Yep, that was indeed a 30-second long opener. After this, the main objective is to use Eggy Assaults and spending the further rune stacks so you don't waste any. Make sure to keep dots up, primarily by using Try Disaster, although every fourth one, the one that happens after Phoenix runs out, has to be done with good old Miasma Bio. Make sure to use Enkindle on cooldown, all 3 variants of course, use Energy Drain or Energy Siphon, and Fester or Pain Flare on cooldown, weaving them between instant spells like Eggy Assault or Rune 4. When possible, use Dreadworm Trance or Firebird Trance, and remember to use Death Flare effectively. It should also be noted that due to how the rotation plays out, Try Disaster would usually become ready mere seconds before Dreadworm Trance, so the timing is very tight on that. Finally, it is easiest to enter Firebird Trance by keeping one use of Rune 4 for the cast, and in the same spirit, you want to hang on to your Rune 4 uses as you make your way to Demi Bahamut again, although you still should spend extra stacks before using Eggy Assault again, so as not to waste any. That is all for this video. Did you enjoy the old style summoner like this one better than the new Endwalker version? Either way, thank you so much for going down this memory lane with me. If you have any questions or anything to add, like your preference for summoner, then please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, back in Stormblood, the Garuda Eggy uniquely had the ability to apply a magic damage increasing debuff as a major cooldown, which meant in certain group compositions it was preferred over Ifrit. It also required a lot more pet management because of it back then.